The cameras flashed, the crowd froze. And just like that, Hollywood had a new obsession, a picture-perfect couple, a 12-year engagement, a quiet, escape to the sprawling hills of Texas.
Right, the absolute dream.
It really was. It looked like the ultimate Hollywood happy ending until the illusion shattered.
Oh, it completely shatters, and it leaves behind this debris field that honestly rewrites everything we thought we knew about them.
Welcome to Starscope Report. Join us as we uncover Hollywood drama. Deep into the stories behind the fame.
And this one is, well, it's a massive story.
It really is. You probably saw that TMZ headline earlier this year about Haylie Duff and Matt Rosenberg splitting up and thought, oh, another quiet, amicable Hollywood breakup.
Right, because we all did. The PR spin was just, it was flawless.
It was so flawless. But when you actually start looking at the civil dockets in Texas and you layer that over a simultaneous, highly public feud with her superstar sister, Hilary Duff, you realize you are looking at the deconstruction of an entire life foundation.
A total collapse.
Exactly. So today, we are unpacking the reality of what happens when a 14-year romance abruptly ends and why a supposedly private breakup is headed for a massive 5-day jury trial.
Which is wild.
It is. If you are fascinated by how the machinery of celebrity actually works behind closed doors, make sure you're subscribed, because we are getting into all of it in this deep dive.
What's really fascinating about this particular deep dive is that it serves as a masterclass in the dual reality of fame.
Yes, the two totally different worlds.
Exactly.
Right.
You have the narrative that is carefully fed to the public, right? And then you have the chaotic, legally entangled, deeply human reality playing out behind the curtain. And in this case, the curtain is being pulled back entirely against their will.
Well, let's wind the clock back and look at how that curtain was constructed in the first place. Because to understand how catastrophic this ending is, you have to understand the sheer weight of a 14-year relationship.
It's a lifetime in Hollywood.
It is. So Haylie and Matt started dating back in 2012. He's the creator of the apparel brand Subway Tile shirts.
The clothing guy.
Yeah. And they get together right after Haylie had spent a few years intensely focused on her career. She was basically recovering from her previous high-profile split from the actor Nick Zano.
Which was a long relationship, too.
Yeah, that lasted from 2008 to 2011.
Right, so she was in this real transition phase.
Yeah.
Stepping out of the blistering heat of that 2000s paparazzi culture and, trying to build something more grounded. Because 14 years is a massive chapter for anyone, but like you said, in Hollywood time, that is practically a century.
Oh, absolutely. And the public just loved them together. Matt proposed on April Fool's Day, which is funny, back to 2014. And Haylie enthusiastically shared it all on her Real Girls Kitchen blog.
She was so open about it back then.
Yeah, she really was. Over the years, they welcomed 2 daughters. Ryan Ava Earhart, who is now 10, and Lulu Gray, who is 7.
2 young kids.
Yeah. And they built this whole life, eventually making a massive cross-country leap from Los Angeles to Austin, Texas.
Which is a huge trend right now.
It is, yeah. They were openly looking for a slower pace, more space, a way to basically step off the Hollywood treadmill. But the detail that always stuck out to me and what makes this current situation so incredibly complicated is that for 12 years, they were engaged, but they never actually got married.
Ah, the perpetual engagement. It is a surprisingly common phenomenon, especially in high net worth circles.
Why is that, though?
Well, Haylie would do interviews and say they postponed the wedding because of the kids and their busy careers. But she used a very specific phrase. She said they felt spiritually married and that they, quote, couldn't be more married if we tried.
Wait, I really struggle with that rationale.
Come on.
Well, busyness is an excuse for 12 years. If you are sharing a home, raising 2 children, and relocating across the entire country together, you clearly have the logistical capacity to sign a marriage license.
Right, you can go to a courthouse in an afternoon.
Exactly. I always look at these spiritual marriages and wonder, does skipping the legal paperwork actually relieve the pressure of the relationship, or does it just create this illusion that walking away will be easier?
Oh, that's a really good point.
It feels like an airplane in a perpetual holding pattern,
Yeah.
You're flying together, but you absolutely refuse to actually land the plane and commit to the destination.
It's very tempting to view it cynically, right? Like a premeditated escape route.
Yeah.
But psychologically, when high-profile couples use scheduling conflicts as a shield, it's often a defense mechanism against deeper, unspoken incompatibilities.
So they know something is wrong, but they just ignore it.
Pretty much. When you say, we'll get married when things slow down, it creates a safe distance because there is this subconscious terror of what you might actually have to confront when the noise finally stops.
And the noise did stop. I mean, they moved to Austin, the pandemic locked everything down, the whole world stopped.
Exactly. And that is where the geography comes into play. Because the move to Texas looks like a beautiful lifestyle choice on Instagram. But in reality, a cross-country relocation is often what we call a geographic cure.
A geographic cure.
Yeah, you tell yourselves, if we just get out of LA, if we get a bigger yard, the tension will vanish. But the problem is, you bring yourselves with you.
Right. You can't escape your own relationship dynamic.
Exactly. You're just putting a fresh coat of paint over a crumbling foundation. The fundamental issues, they don't just stay behind in California.
Which perfectly explains the TMZ announcement at the beginning of 2026. A representative suddenly confirms the couple has ended their relationship. But it is framed so perfectly. It's polite, it's brief, and it explicitly asks for privacy at this time in protection of her young daughters.
That statement is a textbook example of crisis PR. We actually call it polite suffocation.
Polite suffocation.
Yeah.
Nah.
The goal isn't to tell the public what happened. The goal is to kill the story immediately.
Just shut it down.
Exactly. By invoking the privacy and protection of young children, it socially engineers the press and the public to back off. Because if you push for details after they ask you to protect their kids, you look like a monster.
You really do. And that PR statement is a masterclass in misdirection. Because while the public was reading about a quiet, amicable split, the reality playing out in Travis County, Texas was a complete war zone.
It was anything but quiet.
No. And that's not even the wildest part. If you think the PR spin was heavy, wait until you hear what the actual legal documents say.
This is where the paper trail completely shatters that PR illusion.
It really does.
Because when you look past the carefully curated TMZ statements and pull the actual public records, the amicable narrative just evaporates instantly.
We went digging into the civil settings docket for Travis County, Texas, and sitting right there, scheduled for Monday, August 17th, 2026, is case number D1FM 2600000996.
It's just sitting there in public view.
Right there, the docket explicitly lists Duff, Haylie versus Rosenberg, Matthew, and it is set for a 5-day jury trial.
A 5-day jury trial. I mean, for anyone outside the legal field, it is incredibly hard to overstate how massive of a red flag that is.
Break that down for us, because, I mean, I see jury trial and I think of criminal cases or, massive corporate lawsuits. How does a family breakup end up in front of a jury for 5 days?
So Texas is highly unique when it comes to family law. It is one of the very few states in the country that actually allows you to demand a jury trial for family law matters.
Oh, wow. I had no idea.
Yeah, but here's the critical thing. Almost no one actually does it. Oh, almost never.
Yeah.
Especially not high net worth individuals or celebrities. Because the absolute last thing anyone in the public eye wants is 12 strangers sitting in a courtroom, listening to the intimate, painful, potentially embarrassing details of their family's dissolution.
Right, because everything becomes public record.
Exactly. Usually these disputes are handled strictly behind closed doors with private mediators or arbitration.
So if it has escalated to a 5-day jury trial, what does that actually mean about their private negotiations?
It means the negotiations have completely and utterly failed.
Wow.
Yeah. If you are taking a family dispute to a jury, it indicates total gridlock on incredibly high-stakes issues. A jury in Texas family court can decide on 2 major things. First, conservatorship, meaning who gets primary custody, and determining what living arrangements are in the best interest of Ryan and Lulu.
The kids, so that's the most emotional part.
Right. And second, the characterization of property.
Ah, the property. Okay, let's go back to that spiritual marriage concept you mentioned earlier. Because suddenly, skipping the marriage license doesn't look like an easy out at all.
Not at all. Trying to separate 14 years of cohabitation, shared homes, and potentially interwoven business interests without a prenup or a marriage certificate, it's like trying to unbake a cake.
Unbake a cake. That's a great way to put it.
You can't just neatly separate the flour from the eggs after it has been in the oven for a decade. And this is where Texas law gets really, really tricky.
Why? What makes Texas different?
Texas recognizes common law marriage. If you live together, agree to be married, and this is the crucial part, hold yourselves out to the public as married, the state might consider you legally married.
Wait a minute. She gave interviews saying they were spiritually married and couldn't be more married if we tried. Could those exact PR statements be weaponized in court to claim a legal common law marriage actually exists?
Oh, it is entirely possible.
And that would entitle someone to a 50-50 split of assets.
Yes. If one party argues they were common law married, suddenly you aren't just dividing a shared bank account. You are legally disentangling a massive community estate.
That is wild.
The spiritual marriage PR spin might be the exact mechanism that turned their uncoupling into a legal nightmare.
And the public is entirely in the dark about this. They are reading TMZ, assuming Haylie and Matt are just quietly co-parenting at separate houses in Austin.
Right, just living peacefully.
Meanwhile, behind the scenes, elite legal teams are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars prepping for a week-long battle in front of a Texas jury.
It's exhausting just to think about.
The emotional toll of preparing for a trial like that, knowing strangers will be dissecting your parenting and your finances, is unimaginable.
It really is.
But if a high-stakes court battle wasn't enough, there is an entirely separate, devastating layer to this story playing out at the exact same time.
And this is the part that no one saw coming.
Later in the deep dive, we'll talk about the shocking twist regarding Haylie's own flesh and blood. Stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss how these two crises collide.
Because the truth is, when you were going through a brutal private crisis, you usually lean on your core family.
Of course you do. That's your support system.
Exactly. But for Haylie, the foundation of her core family was publicly detonating at the exact same moment her romantic life was unraveling.
Which brings us to the most heartbreaking piece of this puzzle. In early 2026, just as Haylie's relationship is imploding, a devastating estrangement with her superstar sister, Hilary Duff, is broadcast to the entire world.
It's just so tragic.
It really is. And to understand the shockwaves of this, you really have to remember what these sisters represented to pop culture.
Oh, they were the ultimate Hollywood sisterhood blueprint.
They were.
They weren't just siblings, they were an institution.
Absolutely. I mean, if you grew up in the 2000s, Hilary and Haylie were everywhere. They starred in the movie Material Girls together. They recorded that massive, iconic cover of Our Lips Are Sealed.
I still know every word to that song.
Right. And Haylie even played the older, cooler cousin Sandy on Lizzie McGuire. They were the quintessential, fiercely loyal duo who managed to survive child stardom seemingly perfectly intact.
Which is why February 2026 felt like cultural whiplash.
Total whiplash.
The narrative of the inseparable Duff sisters was completely incinerated on live television.
So Hilary Duff, who is now 38, goes on CBS Mornings to promote her new album, Luck or something, and right there on national television, she drops a bombshell.
Just out of nowhere.
Right. She reveals that she and Haylie, who is 41, are completely estranged. They are not speaking. And she confirms that her highly emotional new song, We Don't Talk, is explicitly about Haylie.
The vulnerability Hilary displayed was just staggering. She called the estrangement absolutely the most lonely part of my existence.
That is so raw.
It is. For someone who has been intensely media trained since she was a preteen, you rarely see that level of raw, unpolished grief.
And the internet lost its mind. Fans were heartbroken, and the lyrics to the song went instantly viral. Hilary sings, I'm not sure when it happened, not even sure what it was about. If I did something different, would you feel something different?
It's so haunting.
It is so haunting. And it wasn't just a one-off comment. In March, Hilary went on Jay Shetty's On Purpose podcast and spent an entire episode discussing the deep lingering trauma of your family breaking apart dramatically.
The timing here is the critical element.
Right.
Look at the juxtaposition of how these two sisters are forced to navigate their trauma.
It's like a Jenga tower. When you pull out one essential block of 14-year partner, the whole structure gets wobbly.
Right.
But to lose your sister at the exact same time, it's a complete structural collapse. Is it a coincidence that both pillars of her life fractured simultaneously?
Well, I think it's less of a structural collapse and more of a catastrophic collision of survival mechanisms.
What do you mean by that?
Think about it from a strategic legal perspective. Haylie is gearing up for a brutal 5-day jury trial in a family court. Her entire legal strategy relies on litigation PR. Meaning projecting absolute stability, maintaining total silence, and asking the public for privacy. She needs the waters to be perfectly calm.
Okay, so she has to stay quiet. But Hilary is an artist. Her survival mechanism is entirely different.
Exactly. Hilary's mechanism for processing grief is artistic expression and public vulnerability. She writes pop songs, she does huge podcast interviews.
Right.
So you have a situation where one sister is desperately trying to maintain total silence to protect a fragile legal battle over her children, and the other sister is processing their shared family trauma on global platforms.
That is an insane dynamic.
It's like one person is trying to carefully defuse a bomb in the dark, and the other person is shining a massive spotlight on them while singing through a megaphone.
That is an unbearable catch-22 for Haylie. During that CBS Mornings interview, Hilary even admitted, she said, "I don't know how she'll react to it, but it is a really personal part of my life that doesn't get to stay personal."
Which is tough.
It is, because Hilary absolutely has the right to process her pain through her music. I mean, that is what songwriters do. But Haylie is on the receiving end of that exposure, and because of the pending trial in Texas, she literally cannot defend herself or offer her side of the story without risking her legal standing.
She is trapped in silence.
Completely trapped.
It raises such a complex question about the boundaries of art and family. When your private pain is someone else's public art, how do you navigate that?
I don't think you can.
Especially when your own life is unraveling. Hilary is mourning the loss of the sisterhood, but by doing it so publicly, she might be unintentionally pouring gasoline on Haylie's already blazing life crisis.
It is so heavy. When you zoom out and look at the aggregate of all these pieces, the picture it paints is just staggering.
It really is.
You have a 14-year romance that started in the blinding lights of Hollywood and was supposed to find peace in the quiet hills of Texas. It was masked by this polite, perfectly engineered PR statement.
The polite suffocation.
Exactly. But beneath that surface is a looming 5-day jury trial in a Travis County courthouse, a legal nightmare where strangers will dissect their 14 years of spiritual marriage.
And deciding the fate of their kids.
Yes, and hovering over all of that is the heavy, highly publicized shadow of a heartbreaking sisterly feud immortalized in pop music.
It's the ultimate reality check for anyone consuming celebrity culture.
How so?
Well, we buy into the glossy magazine spreads, the slower pace of life interviews, the sisterly red carpet photos.
Okay.
We want to believe the fairy tale.
Of course we do.
But this story proves that no matter how well-crafted the public image is, the human reality behind it is usually incredibly complex, legally treacherous, and deeply painful.
Which brings me to a final thought for you to mull over. Amidst all of this noise, the aggressive legal filings, the viral podcast interviews, the PR spin, the fans dissecting pop lyrics on social media, there are two little girls at the absolute center of this storm.
Ryan and Lulu.
Right. Haylie once happily shared in an interview that during the pandemic lockdown, her daughters really turned into friends. She talked about how they would make potions out of flowers and milk in the backyard, how they loved popping popcorn and having long movie days.
That sounds so idyllic.
It does. They built this beautiful, insulated, magical little world together in Texas.
An insulated world that is currently undergoing a massive, terrifying seismic shift.
Exactly. As the adults in their lives battle in a Travis County courthouse over conservatorship and assets, and as they process their family estrangement through televised interviews and global streaming platforms, how do those two children weather this?
It's a lot for kids to carry.
It really is. It makes you wonder, at what point does the cost of maintaining public fame completely outweigh the benefit of just finding a private, quiet resolution?
It is a question that doesn't have an easy answer, but it sits at the very heart of why we can't look away from stories like this.
You've been listening to Starscope Report, where we uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.